Okay, today I would like to reminisce a little bit about Grandpa George and Grandma Rosine. And can you tell me some of the memories you had back when you were little?
Well, I guess I remember Christmases. That was the most fun time. Grandpa we would have a program, and of course all the aunts would be in the kitchen fixing food, and Grandpa would sit down at a certain point and give everybody a fresh dollar bill. And
I guess Santa Claus always came. Always had a big bag of goodies for something for everybody.
That's right.
I think Mary and Norman had a lot to do with that. We didn't know it at the time. I remember coming up to the house, and Grandpa would be sitting in front of his little radio, listening to the news.
Very loudly.
Mm-hmm. And many times in the summertime, he'd be sitting in the little white wooden chair out by the lilac bushes. I remember Grandma would go to her cupboard, and she'd have this dish of, I think it was bread and milk, or graham crackers and milk. And she'd offer it, and I guess I never quite had enough nerve to taste it.
Oh yeah, that was graham crackers and milk. I do remember that.
And she did a lot of mending and crocheting. I suppose that's how all the girls got all their talent in their crocheting.
She had her light bulb in her basket and would mend socks. We don't do that anymore.
No, I guess we go to the store and buy them. She was very quiet.
Well, she died when I was in first grade. I don't remember an awful lot about her.
Well, let's reminisce a little bit about some of the things we did as little girls. I don't know how far you can remember back, but I remember all the paper dolls and the dolls we used to play with, and we even would dress up the cat sometimes in a bonnet and a little dress, and I'm surprised they would ride around in the baby buggies like they did, but...
Well, we didn't have all the toys that the kids have now. I remember we'd get one doll a year. That was kind of our main present. We had a lot of doll furniture. Mm-hmm. You always got the best stuff.
Oh, I did. And we'd go to Fergusville's. We'd each get a paper doll book, and we'd come home, and we were quite creative. We would take the old Sears catalog and cut the dresses out, and then we'd put straps on the dress, and then we'd have a bar that went across.
Tinker Toys, I think.
Then we'd get Tinker Toys and make a store.
Mm-hmm. I remember Sunday afternoons, Daddy always wanted to take a nap, and our house was pretty small, and I don't know that we got along so tremendously all the time, but Sunday afternoons we always seemed to get the giggles and
up to our room we'd go.
In a little trouble for that.
And we always used to have playhouses. And once we'd have it in the chicken coop, and then we eventually moved to the woods.
Well, I remember when we had it in the chicken coop, going to the dump grounds and always finding some new dishes. And if we got to the dump grounds before rain, sometimes we'd find these true romance magazines.
Oh.
Which were completely outlawed at our house. And I can remember stashing a few in the Bruder house. And one day you came out and caught me reading them, and I thought, oh, now she's going to tell on me. But we took them up to your room, and
I got the blame.
Then we hid them under the mattress for a while till one day it was too quiet, and Mom came up and caught them, and I think they went back to the dump.
Well, it got recycled.
It got recycled.
Well, I thought we were very creative in the woods. We used to make mud pies. Maybe that's why we like the chocolate mud pies so well today. I don't know. And sometimes Mom would give us flour, and we'd get a little coloring, and we would make frosting for these mud pies. We'd set up like a restaurant. And we were quite creative, really.
I see. Speaking of mud pies, I remember the candy bars.
Oh yes, I happen to
have one here.
Tell us about that Hershey bar or Snicker bars we used to get.
I always had to cut it. You got to choose first, but now that we're a little older, why don't you cut it and let me choose first?
We always have like chocolate, haven't we?
This isn't fair. It should be a Snicker.
Well, I know what easy to do. Well, now we have that. Which one would you like?
Well, I guess I'll take that one.
Okay. Well, I kind of remember sometimes helping Mom feed the chickens, and she'd carry water and feed, and as we'd walk along, we were usually barefoot, and I guess I can remember a time or two where I stepped in some chicky dirt and kind of oozed through the toes, and you know, I did.
Yeah, that wasn't my favorite job either.
No.
Well, I remember through the summer, the thrashing, that was always kind of highlight of the summer.
That was because it was kind of, I remember waking up in the morning and the sun would be out and you could hear the birds chirping, and pretty soon there'd come the thrashing machine, and behind it would come the elevator and all the horses at that time. And all the aunts or all the uncles were thrashing together, and it was kind of like a parade.
Well, and all the kids came, and when I think of what Mom would have to do to cook for that many, it was a main meal in the middle of the day, and all the kids came, and she would have to fix lunch in the morning, dinner at noon, and lunch in the afternoon, and
no freezers.
no freezers.
That was
No
a
running
busy
water.
time. It was hot.
I do remember one particular time we made a special kind of cookie with dates in the middle, and they had a big roasting pan, and we had all these cookies for morning lunch, and in the morning we went to get them, and here was a trail of ants all the way up into the cookies, and I've called them ant cookies ever since.
Yeah, they were very good. But it was a fun time. I remember sitting along the edge of the trailer while the grain would come into the trailer, and it was always fun to stick your toes in the wheat, and sometimes we'd chew a few wheat kernels, and it was a fun time.
Yeah,
I
it was a
remember
fun
that.
time.
Hunting season was a fun time because we always had hunters come from Minneapolis and Chicago, and they always seemed to bring a little present for us. And I can remember sitting in that big chair in the living room and waiting for them to come. And I remember one time Jay brought Mom 100 pounds of sugar. He was an insurance adjuster, and sugar was rationed at that time, and that was really a gift for her. And boy, they had really good hunting. She'd get up like at 4 o'clock in the morning and make breakfast, and that was a busy time too. I remember Dad telling a story one time about Jay's boat, or Herb's boat, I'm not sure whose boat it was, and he had put some skunks, had gotten some skunks, and had stored them under there for a while, I guess, and he had told you, sure not to tell. Well, what happened?
I guess I told. I don't remember too much about that. I do remember one of the fellows that came was pretty heavy, and I think they broke the bed.
Yeah, they did. It fell down.
I remember that.
Do you remember, was after Mom had gone to town, and I guess we had gone over to Irene's one time, and we left a note for my mother. Do you remember that note?
No.
To tell her where we were.
Oh.
And what we did with the key.
Oh, probably. We left it under the mat.
Yeah, we just left a note saying the key is under the mat.
Under the mat, okay.
So I guess everybody knew where the key was. Do you have any embarrassing moments as a child? I remember I do.
I think I used to embarrass you, but probably wasn't a real childhood memory. You, of course, being much older, dated soon. And I can remember waiting upstairs in the storeroom to watch you come home to see if anybody was going to kiss you goodnight.
Well, we won't ask you the results of that.
So I guess that's probably embarrassing when I think back on it.
Well, I remember my own embarrassment was at a Sunday school picnic, and hadn't had much experiences with straws. And I remember very clearly I was drinking orange crush out of a straw. But I didn't know you didn't have to tip the bottle. So I tipped the bottle at the same time, and we had orange crush all over. And I have little grandchildren who can drink out of a straw at a very early age. I remember all the band concerts in town. Do you have memories of those?
Every Wednesday night, we'd go to town.
And we backed the car up to the sidewalk so you could face the bandstand. And it was really a busy, fun time in town. And we'd get ice cream cones, and they were the double decker, and sometimes we'd get a triple cone on the top, and ice cream. Do you remember what we did after chores with Dad sometimes? And Mom, we'd always play a game of canasta.
I think that all started when you broke your leg.
Oh, okay.
He brought, well, maybe not canasta, Chinese checkers. I think that's when we learned to play Chinese checkers, when you broke your leg, and after chores we would play.
I remember we were a very healthy family, except you did go to the hospital once. Tell me about that.
That was during thrashing. I woke up early one morning, and I was driving the tractor, and I told Mom, I said, I don't think I can drive this morning. I really have a stomach ache. And by 3 o'clock that afternoon, I was operated on. So I had my appendix out. And I did have my tonsils out when I was young.
That's right.
You didn't. And I remember I had gone to the hospital to see Lauren when he was born. And children, of course, couldn't come in under 12. And this big, heavy-set nurse said, "Where is she going?" And Grandma Wiegand and I had to sit in the waiting room because kids weren't allowed. So a few years later, I'm in there for my tonsils, and she's the head nurse as I get wheeled into the operating room.
Well, I guess the only thing that happened to me is I broke my leg when I was playing ball in 7th grade. Missed a few weeks of school. That wasn't so good, but that wasn't too bad. Do you remember any family trips we took?
Went to Milwaukee one time, and we went to the Wisconsin Dells. Not too many.
I remember going to Minneapolis once for the ice capades.
I went to the neighbors. You went with Janice Wiegand.
Okay. Maybe I had more fun.
I think you had more fun. I remember every summer we would take this trip to Sisseton in South Dakota to see our relatives. And he owned a gamble store, and so we'd go shopping.
That was always a fun, kind of a highlight. Yeah. Well, I think we've been blessed with wonderful parents. And what are some of the values that we've learned as children, as we grew up, that we've carried through in life?
Well, I think when you get out in the world a little, you realize just probably what all you did have. We just always felt close as a family. We never felt threatened. We grew up happy. We didn't have the worries that a lot of children have these days growing up. We had a secure family, and I guess that makes me realize family's a priority in my life.
Well, I think we've carried that through all these years. We've stayed close as family, and I think we learned that honesty is the best policy, and we learned a lot of good Christian values, and to live by the golden rule, do unto others as you have them do unto you. And they were just always there when we needed them. And I know Dad many times had to do chores early to go to our band concerts and so forth. And I know one fun thing was always to go roller skating in Barrett. And so Mom would have to take us, and I know many times she drove back to Elbow Lake and waited for us. And I guess that was really dedication. And I think the folks have been very generous with us, never demanding. I know there are times when I'm sure they would like us to be there, but have always said, come if you can and see if it works out. And I really appreciate that. And I'm sure there's times they were disappointed, but I guess we've been very lucky. And to our parents, I guess I'd like to say thank you for being great parents. To all the aunts and uncles and cousins, we've been so blessed. We've had so many good times, and just want to thank everybody for just a great family. And I think you're the best sister I could ever have, and a great friend, and I really appreciate that. And we're now here in Cynthia's home, and we just have a lot of good times.
We do, and I think sometimes you have to grow up to appreciate what you have in families.
I think that's very true. Oh, tell me about this bunny you're holding.
Well, it seems like every time we get together, somebody has to have a new project. And this summer, this is what all bunnies are wearing. This is the newest style, sunflowers. And I think we made 3 when you were down for my birthday, for you and Sandy and myself. And now I have several people I want to make them for. And I have some other things that I've done all through the years that was very profitable for a little while. Before I started working full-time, that's when I really did lots of Cabbage Patch doll clothes.
And before Cabbage Patch, you had, when
Barbie
you were
dolls.
out east, you kind of made your extra money with Barbie doll clothes.
We paid our first $50 down on our first house with Barbie doll money.
That's
So
pretty good.
Barbie dolls and dolls have been in my life a long time, and here's one I'm very proud of. Here's my new owner. You better tell me about.
Well, I kind of got into dolls about a year ago, but actually she has the number 2, and the number 1 isn't quite done, but I really would like to do more dolls. They are so much fun.
And she kind of sits in this special little buggy that was Uncle George's.
Yeah, that has special
So
memories.
that has a lot of memories.
Do you remember all the fun craft shows we've been to?
Yes, well, you've probably been to more, but I did join on a couple.
Now, I remember one time we were in Grand Forks, or I was in Grand Forks with Clara and my mother and Lena. And we really had a good show. And we just had to call you. And I'm sure glad nobody else knew it, but we had some money laying on the beds there, and we were talking to you. And I guess you kind of got the fever that night.
I guess so. All the next year I joined you with the Cabbage Patch.
We really had some good times, but I'm kind of glad I'm not doing it right now.
That's right.
Tell us about the Afghan you have there.
Well, Afghans are one of the things that I keep doing. This is the newest one I have for my house because it's the colors in our bedroom. It's very, very big, and it goes on the bed at night a lot. I've made, all my kids have at least 2 Afghans, I think, and I have made several for wedding gifts, and that's just one of the things I really enjoy.
I think you got me started in knitting and crocheting Afghans.
Crocheting is about the only thing I do for Afghans. Otherwise I probably knit. There's a couple pictures there that probably would be fun to show. Sandy got me started cross-stitching, and this is one she did, and she gave it to us at her wedding. And she does much more elaborate things than I do. And there's one that you've done.
I
do a lot
don't
of
do anything like
cross-stitch.
she does, but I have done a few things.
And that's one of my favorites. And show some of your quilting projects.
We are now down for John's graduation from college. And like you said, every time we kind of need a new project. So we went to demonstration at
Peddler's Wagon.
Peddler's Wagon yesterday, and they showed us how to do paper machine quilting. And was it ever fun? So we produced these last night, or yesterday afternoon.
You'll
Just
probably
like that.
you'll probably get your quilt finished before me. And then we did a little Christmas. We're getting a little head start on Christmas this year.
But they are done the same way.
Just a new process.
And I guess one of my favorite hobbies, my favorite things is quilting. And I had to do a Christmas tablecloth for you last year for Christmas. I just thought it was so much fun, and they really are quite pretty.
Well, and I'm very glad that you've taken up quilting.
I've done some quilts, but I don't happen to have any on our beds. The girls each have one, and I guess the boy, Robert and Steve, each have a quilt. But it's just a problem of time.
I think quilting is something
But
I'd
it
like
is
to do
a
when
fun
I
project.
retire. Next time.
Why don't you just put it on one more time and we'll just... Tell me about the little yellow bear.
Well, I was very surprised when you came, and I understand this is a quilt or a spread, an old chenille spread that came from either Grandma's house or Myrtle's. So that's a nice way to preserve things that we'd have no use for otherwise.
And I guess each time we get together, we come up with a new project, and I don't know whose turn it is next time, but I'm sure we'll find something, and
Well, I'm
we
sure-
really have a good time. We don't stay up quite as late as we used to.
Well,
but
we came close this time, and I think we did in April.
yeah, it's been fun. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about your family, your children, and where they are and what they're doing?
Well, Scott and Leslie are here in Kansas City. They have just had their second child, Emily, and she's about 6 weeks old. Their other son, Christopher, will be 3 next Friday. And Glenn and Judy also live here in town, and they have Nate and Katie. They're 6 and almost 4.
And what do the boys and the girls or the women do?
Judy's a teacher. She teaches 3rd grade at Holy Cross, has for many years. And Glenn works part-time with the ambulance and is a hospital, sells hospital equipment. And Scott is an architect, and Leslie is a homemaker. And today we are leaving in a couple hours for John's graduation from MU, and he'll have a major in English, so he'll be looking for a job.
It's an exciting day today.
It's exciting. And Peter is finishing up his 2nd year. He'll be home in a week, and he goes to Concordia College in River Forest, Illinois, and he is majoring in teaching and music. So this summer we'll have 2 boys home, and we'll probably have a busy summer.
You will.
Now about your family.
Well, our oldest Debbie is married to Mark Gackle, who works for his uncle in the Universal Services with office equipment. And they live in Moorhead, just a few blocks from us. And we have Jeffrey, who is 5, and Rachel, who is a year and a half. Steve is just finishing his residency in family practice, and will be soon deciding where he's going to set up his practice. Sandy lives about 6 blocks or so from us in Moorhead, and she's married to Dave. Dave is assistant manager with Sunmart, and Sandy is now doing a daycare in her home. We have about 14 little kids running around there with the help of Amy. They have 3 boys, Tyler, almost 7, and Jordan was just 5, and Logan will be 4. And then there's Robert, who lives in Fargo and works for a dental lab. Then Jim just got married in March. We had a fun wedding. Married to Don McKenna from Williston. And he is producing his own software company in Minneapolis, and Don is a claims adjuster for Westfield Insurance. I guess that about takes care of it. You live close to Grandpa George, like right across the street. I'd like you to come and join us and give a few memories that you might have of George. You might remember more than we do. Okay?
Well, I'm sure I remember some things. As you see, I'm not dressed for graduation, but I've been in the yard. Yeah, we lived right across from your grandfather, of course, and I have quite a few memories of George as he grew old, and I guess I lived there 12 years or so. And I particularly remember a garden of his. In the spring of the year, we used to sneak in, and we thought we were pretty smart because we'd steal young rhubarb sprouts. Of course, no one wanted the rhubarb anyway, but we'd lay down by the hedge and eat from his garden, thinking all the time that we were getting away with something. And the other thing I remember particularly is George would go down to the mail, get the mail every day at a certain time, and then he'd spend at least an hour or 2, I'm sure, sitting out in front of one of the stores in Wendell, downtown, talking to his old cronies, and you could set your watch by him going downtown. Third thing I remember that I'm still embarrassed about and feeling guilty, your granddad's house, and I think they're still there, has 3 or 4 lightning rods. And on each lightning rod was a little glass colorful bulb of some kind. And I discovered one day that someone, and I didn't know who at that time, had taken a BB gun and shot 2 of those out. Well, I was about 9 or 10, I suppose, and I thought 2 out didn't make a lot of sense, so I proceeded to shoot the 3rd one out, and 45 years later, or so, I go by and I see those bare lightning rods, and I still continue to feel guilty. I wasn't a mean boy and didn't damage things purposefully, but that seemed to be just too attractive for me to turn out. So I
You
feel
never told me that.
I never told you about that, and I've looked ever since, and I think those lightning rods are still standing. So, a lot of other things. My mother and he used to talk quite a bit about gardening. He had a big garden between our house and his house, and he just seemed to be a nice, friendly old man at that time. And even with us being very young, it seemed like we could at least say hello and get a hello from him. I guess that's about all my reminiscing.
Well, Dave, when did you first notice Cynthia? Was it when she came over to visit Grandpa, or was it in school in later years, or when did you first notice her as somebody kind of special?
Well, I think it was in school. I don't really know how early I associated George with your family. So I'll have to say I think my first recollections were grade school, early grade school. She was one of the girls that didn't wet her pants at school, and she was just another girl from around the Wendell area. So, and I really don't think that we paid much attention to each other until we were well along in high school. But of course, we've known each other since first grade or second grade. Of course, she's much older, having started first grade before I did by 1 year.
Kind of a childhood sweetheart. So.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I'm real glad for you to help share some memories with us.
Well, thank you. I've been pleased to be part of this family for so many years, and
How many years
we've
is it?
enjoyed our married life, 34 as I recall, and it's a pleasure.
Well, Corky, you've been in the family now for a little over 35 years. I would like you to share some of your memories with us.
It was August of 1958 that I first became involved with the Wiegand family. And at the time I was working in a mental health center in Austin, Minnesota. And myself and 2 friends were renting a house together. And it so happened that all the new teachers in town had their pictures in their paper. And so we went about circling the pictures of all the good-looking new teachers and set about searching them down around town and inviting them over to the house for a party. And of course, Romayne was very, very happy to come. She always protests that she checked me out first and so on. But
It's kind of like the personals in the paper.
at any rate, we kind of hit it off right from the start. That was August, and when did we get engaged? In about October?
3 weeks later.
That makes September.
Yes.
Okay, and got married in December. She was teaching in Austin, so we had to get married during Christmas
No, we
vacation.
didn't have to get married.
We didn't have to get married, but we did get married during Christmas vacation of that year. And it's been a great time.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
35 very good years.
Uh,